The day the wolf Empress arrived on Earth began quietly, almost too quietly, as if the world was holding its breath. People across the greenstone habitat woke up expecting a normal morning full of routine work watering plants, recording soil data, but instead found themselves standing outside, staring at the sky. The clouds were split by a silver glow, soft at first, then growing brighter and wider until the air itself seemed to shimmer like warm light reflecting on water. Elias Moore, the gardener who worked the earliest shift, was among the first to see it. He had stepped outside to trim the climbing vines near the greenhouse gates when he noticed the strange glow. He blinked, thinking maybe the sun was rising in an unusual way, but no, this light moved. It descended, slowly, gracefully, and with the calm confidence of something that belonged wherever it chose to be. The ship appeared through the thinning light, like a giant silver petal unfolding. Its surface looked almost alive, with flowing lines that resembled strands of fur that shimmered in different colors depending on how the sunlight touched them. People whispered that it looked like a creature sleeping in the sky. Others said it looked like a dream gently landing on Earth. Elias didn't say anything. He just watched with wide eyes, his gardening tools forgotten at his feet. The ship settled onto the landing pad prepared for the Lutheran delegation. A gentle hum flowed through the air, and the ground vibrated softly, not in a frightening way, but like a large animal shifting its weight. The arrival was peaceful and elegant, almost like a ritual dance. No smoke, no harsh sound. Just a quiet landing that left everyone staring in wonder. Everyone had heard about the Lutheran Empire long before this day. They were a proud civilization of wolf-like beings who traveled across galaxies, famous for their wisdom, their ancient traditions, and their deep respect for natural life. They were not known for chaos or conflict. They came only for diplomacy and knowledge. And now, for the first time, their leader, Empress Lyriana Vex, had come to Earth. Herself, her presence alone would have made history. The doors of the ship opened without a single mechanical sound. A soft light poured out, warm and gold, forming a path on the metal ramp. The guards came out first, tall, elegant figures with fur coats that looked like flowing robes. Their movements were smooth, almost graceful, and their eyes glowed like polished amber. They stood on either side of the ramp, forming an aisle for their Empress. Then she appeared. Lyriana Vex walked slowly. Not because she was hesitant, but because she moved with a dignity that invited attention and respect. Her fur was silver white and shone softly like moonlight resting on snow. Her eyes were bright and calm, aware of every detail around her. She was dressed in a long coat made of woven star threads, something that shimmered with faint colors each time she stepped. People murmured in awe. Cameras clicked. Scientists whispered to one another, trying to take notes without shaking from excitement. But Elias simply watched. He had never seen a being like her before. She didn't look frightening, just powerful in a quiet, wise way, like someone who carried the stories of 1,000 worlds on her shoulders. Greenstone Habitat. It's the place chosen for this meeting. Was partly a research center and partly a massive botanical garden filled with plants from all over Earth. Trees from rainforests stood beside dryland succulents. Fragile flowers grew under glass domes. Artificial waterfalls created a peaceful sound that had become part of everyday life. And right in the center of this living maze stood the landing pad where the Empress now walked. Elias had worked here for 3 years. He wasn't a scientist or diplomat. He didn't study alien languages or write reports. He simply took care of the plants that made this place feel alive, watering them, pruning their leaves, checking their soil, and making sure the green spaces stayed healthy. Some people overlooked him, thinking gardening was simple or unimportant. But Elias didn't mind. He loved plants. He loved their quiet honesty. And in a place full of experts, he was content being the quiet worker in the background. Today, however, he didn't feel like part of the background. He felt like someone standing in the front row of a moment that would change history. As Lyriana reached the bottom of the ramp, the human representatives stepped forward to greet her. They were carefully dressed and had practiced their words many times. They bowed politely, welcoming the Empress and her delegation to Earth. The Empress responded with a gentle nod, a small but graceful gesture that felt more meaningful than a long speech. Words were exchanged between the leaders, but Elias could not hear them from where he stood. Still, he felt the atmosphere shift. It was as if the plants themselves sensed the new visitor. The breeze softened, the leaves rustled gently, and the light filtering through the greenhouse glass seemed warmer than usual. After the greetings were finished, Liriana's advisors guided her toward the entrance of the habitat. Her ship, however, remained on the pad. Shimmering faintly like a living thing, taking a peaceful breath, Elias noticed something odd as he returned to his work. Near the base of the ship, tiny spores from the wind had settled on the silver surface, small, soft particles floating from nearby plants. The ship's outer layer seemed to absorb them gently, but something about the interaction caught his attention. He paused and watched, wondering if the plants could affect the ship in some way. He didn't touch anything. He did not dare. But he made a mental note to clear the surrounding area later to prevent too much debris from drifting toward the vessel. Throughout the day, the entire habitat buzzed with excitement. People hurried between buildings, checking schedules, confirming meeting times, and preparing presentations for the Empress's advisors. Scientists spoke quickly about research discoveries. Diplomats practiced polite greetings. Security teams reviewed safety procedures. Elias simply continued his work, trimming the bushes near the walkway and checking the water levels in the irrigation system. But even he felt the strange, pleasant electricity in the air. Like the world had suddenly become bigger, filled with new possibilities. As the sun rose higher, a soft glow radiated from the Empress's ship, making the silver lines on its surface ripple like flowing fur. The ship almost seemed to respond to the environment around it. Birds flew close, circling the top of the vessel before landing peacefully on nearby branches. Even the butterflies were drawn to the light. Elias watched it all with quiet admiration. He didn't feel fear. He didn't feel overwhelmed. Just curious deeply, honestly curious. The ship felt alive in a gentle, peaceful way, like a sleeping creature surrounded by nature. Little did he know that this calm, this quiet start would soon be interrupted by a single moment that would send shockwaves through the entire Luffren delegation. A moment that would begin with the Empress stepping onto her ship again, and seeing something that should not have been touched, but for now, all Elias knew was the sound of leaves brushing in the wind, and the sight of a shimmering ship resting among the gardens he cared for. He did not yet understand that his simple life was about to change in a way he could never have imagined. The next morning, a greenstone habitat began with the same warmth and soft light that always filled the gardens at sunrise. Dew sparkled on the leaves, small insects buzzed gently near the flowers, and the air carried a fresh, sweet scent. Everything looked peaceful, almost like the world wanted to welcome a new day with calm energy. But inside the Luffren ship, that peace was about to break in a very unexpected way. Empress Liriana Vex woke early, as she always did. Her people believed that mornings were sacred, a time when the inner spirit was clearest. She stepped onto the ramp of her ship with quiet grace, ready to begin the day's diplomatic meetings. Several of her guards followed her, keeping a respectful distance and watching everything around them with calm focus. Then Liriana stepped. Inside her ship, she stopped. She did not move at all. The interior of the ship, normally arranged in a way only Luffren people truly understood, looked completely different. It was clean, not just tidy, but shining. The soft, natural fibers lining the walls had been brushed neatly. The floor, which usually held traces of fragrant lunar dust brought from her home star, was spotless. Even the decorative claw mark patterns her ancestors had placed in the inner hall were polished smooth. Liriana slowly turned her head, her silver-white ears lifting slightly in surprise. Her ship had never looked like this. It was beautiful, yes, but the surprise ran much deeper than beauty. In her culture, every mark, every bit of dust, every natural scuff was part of the ship's living history. It was not dirt. It was memory, and now those memories were wiped clean. Her guards entered behind her, and froze as soon as they saw her expression. The Empress said nothing at first. She simply walked forward, her steps slow and thoughtful, looking at every corner of the main hall. The air even smelled different, like fresh leaves in sunlight, mixed with a faint earth garden scent she didn't recognize. "Who entered my ship?" she finally asked, her voice calm but full of clear confusion. No guard answered immediately. They exchanged uncertain glances, each silently waiting for someone else to explain the impossible situation. One of her advisors hurried inside and looked around in disbelief. "Your Radiance, this is not the natural state of the vessel. Someone has interfered." Liriana nodded gently. "Yes, someone has." She touched the wall with her palm. The living surface of the ship responded to her touch with a warm glow. But even that glow felt different, more balanced, more open. She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a slow breath, as if listening to the ship's quiet voice. When she opened them again, her calm eyes showed a mix of curiosity and confusion. "We must know who did this," she said softly. "Please check the ship's entry records." Her advisor bowed lightly and hurried outside to access the ship's outer controls. The guards stepped aside for him, though their ears twitched with nervous energy. No one expected such a mystery on only the second day of their visit. Outside, humans were starting to gather for the day's meetings. Many of them noticed the unusual tension among the Lufrin guards, but none understood why. Elias Moore, meanwhile, had just arrived for his morning work. He walked through the gardens with a small watering container in hand, greeting the plants as he always did. He did not rush. He took his time. He loved the early hours. When the world was quiet and the garden smelled new, he had no idea that the Empress was standing in the middle of her ship, asking a question that would soon lead straight to him. Back inside the ship, Liriana paced slowly through the halls, examining the changes. She knew every inch of her vessel. She could feel when something was out of place. And everything here was out of place, not badly, just differently. Her people valued order, but not the type of order humans valued. For Lufrin, order meant harmony between natural elements, not polished perfection. Their ships were designed to grow and shift over time, gathering marks that showed their journeys. Cleaning them in the human sense was almost never done. It felt strange to her, like someone had taken a diary and erased entire pages. Yet at the same time, nothing had been damaged. The surfaces were smooth. The energy flow in the walls felt stronger, almost like the ship was breathing more easily. It was confusing, because this unfamiliar human-style cleaning had somehow made the ship feel comfortable. Her advisor returned a few minutes later, holding a small glowing tablet. "We checked the energy logs. Your Radiance," he said. "Only one being entered the ship during the night hours." "Who?" Liriana asked. The advisor hesitated. Even the guards shifted uncomfortably. "A human," he said at last. "A maintenance worker. A gardener." Liriana blinked in surprise. "A gardener?" "Yes. His name is Elias Moore." The guards exchanged puzzled looks. Humans had many roles, but a gardener entering their ship? Why? How? There had been no scheduled visits, no maintenance requests, nothing that should have allowed such a thing. Liriana walked slowly toward the entrance of the ship, her soft coat flowing behind her like a silver cloud. She stopped at the top of the ramp and looked out at the garden. Her eyes landed on Elias. He was completely unaware of her gaze. At that moment, he was bent over a bed of small blue flowers, checking their stems with gentle care. He brushed a leaf softly, making sure no insects were harming it. He moved slowly, calmly, like someone who respected every piece of nature he touched. Liriana watched him for a long moment. The way he worked was simple, but filled with a quiet devotion. She could sense his intentions, even from a distance, peaceful, honest, careful. Her advisor stepped closer and whispered, "Shall we question him immediately, Your Radiance?" Liriana did not answer at first. Instead, she studied the movement of the garden around Elias. The breeze seemed to follow him gently, lifting petals that swirled softly in the air. Nearby butterflies drifted toward him, circling lazily as if drawn to some calm warmth he carried with him. Finally, the Empress spoke. "Yes, bring him here. But gently. He seems unaware of what he has done." The guards moved with quiet steps toward the garden. Two approached Elias, who looked up with a small smile, thinking they were simply passing by. When he saw they were actually walking straight toward him, his smile faded into confusion. "Good morning," he said softly. One of the guards bowed slightly aloof from etiquette even, though they felt uneasy. "Please come with us," the guard said in a calm voice. "The Empress wishes to speak with you." Elias froze. "Me?" he asked, pointing to himself. "Yes," the guard replied. Elias's heart fluttered with sudden nervousness. He had never spoken to royalty in his life. He barely spoke during team meetings, much less to an empress from another world. Still, he followed them obediently, wiping soil from his hands and trying to breathe normally as he walked toward the ship. He felt dozens of eyes watching him, human researchers who whispered to one another in surprise, Lufran advisors who looked puzzled, and a few guards who seemed both curious and unsure. Liriana stood at the top of the ramp waiting. Her presence was calm, but powerful, like standing in front of a wise old tree. Elias swallowed hard. He had a feeling this was about something important. Though he didn't understand what yet, he bowed awkwardly. He wasn't sure if that was the correct greeting. But Liriana gave a small, gentle nod. "Elias Moore," she said in her clear, steady voice. "I have a question for you." Elias looked up, nervous but respectful. "Yes, your radiance?" Her silver eyes met his, kind but serious. "Did you enter my ship last night?" Elias blinked. "Your ship?" "Yes, I did. But only two." The Empress waited silently. Elias's words stuck in his throat. His hands felt warm and sweaty. His heart beat faster. He had no idea that his simple explanation was about to shift the entire tone of their Visitan explanation that would reveal intentions so pure that even an empress from another star would not know what to say at first. Elias stood at the base of the ship's ramp, feeling the weight of every gaze around him. The Lufran guards stood tall and calm, but their attention was sharp. The human researchers nearby watched with quiet curiosity, whispering to one another about why a simple gardener had been summoned by the Empress herself. Elias tried not to let their stares make him more nervous, but it was impossible not to feel small under so much attention. Empress Liriana remained at the top of the ramp, the soft silver glow of the ship reflecting off her coat. She looked peaceful, but her eyes were focused and thoughtful. There was no anger in her expression, only a deep desire to understand. When she spoke again, her voice was gentle. "You said you entered my ship. Please tell me why." Elias took a slow breath. He wanted to choose his words carefully, but he also knew he had to be honest. "Well, yes," he admitted, rubbing his hands together nervously. "I did go inside, but not for anything important. I thought something might need well cleaning." The Lufran advisors exchanged confused glances. The guards straightened a little, their ears lifting. The Empress tilted her head slightly. "Cleaning." Elias nodded quickly. "Yes, I know I shouldn't have. I know it wasn't part of my job. But yesterday I noticed that some pollen and flower dust had drifted onto the ramp and near the doorway. Sometimes, if plant dust piles up, it can attract insects or stick to surfaces in a way that can cause trouble later. I got worried it might affect your ship in some way." He paused, uncertain if this explanation was helping or making things worse. "I just thought I should clear it before anything happened," he added softly. "I meant no harm. I just didn't want nature to cause trouble." The Empress listened quietly. She didn't interrupt him, even though her advisors clearly had many questions. She watched the way Elias spoke, not boldly or proudly, but with a gentle sincerity that made his words feel warm and honest. "So you entered without permission," she said calmly, "because you wished to protect the ship from natural dust?" "Yes," Elias said quickly. "Only that." Liriana looked at him for several long seconds, her eyes calm and observant. Then she turned slightly toward her advisor. "Show him," she said simply. The advisor tapped a glowing panel near the ramp. The ship responded with soft ripples of light, like water moving in a shallow pool. A moment later, part of the ship's wall opened to reveal the interior. Ilias's eyes widened as he saw the inside clean, bright and impossibly beautiful in a way he had never expected. The surfaces shined softly, and the air inside looked clear, as though the ship produced its own gentle light. The Empress gestured for him to follow her. "Come," she said. "Let us see what you have done." He hesitated for a moment, unsure if he was allowed, but her voice made it clear that she wanted him inside. With small steps, he followed her into the ship. The other Luffren watched silently as Elias walked through the entrance. Some looked puzzled, some curious, and others thoughtful. It was not common for an outsider, especially a human, to be invited inside one of their living ships. Inside, the air felt soft and slightly warm, almost like the gentle atmosphere of a greenhouse. The walls had patterns that shifted slowly, like the smooth movement of clouds. Elias walked slowly, trying not to touch anything. The Empress stopped in the center of the hall and turned toward him. "This is not how a Lufran vessel usually looks," she said. "You have changed it." Elias looked down immediately. "I'm sorry. Truly, I didn't know." Liriana stepped closer, not threateningly, but with a curious energy. "What made you think cleaning was needed?" Elias swallowed nervously. "I guess it's just how humans take care of things. If something is dusty or covered in little particles, we clean it so it stays healthy. I clean the greenhouse every day. I sweep, brush, remove pollen. It's just something I'm used to. When I saw the surface of your ship, collecting things from the garden, I thought it might need a little help." The Empress studied him carefully. "And you cleaned all of this alone?" "Yes," Elias said quietly. "I didn't want to bother anyone. I thought I could just take care of it and leave." Liriana's eyes softened slightly. "You entered a foreign vessel, cleaned its sacred spaces, and left without telling anyone. Why?" Elias hesitated, then shrugged gently. "Because helping feels right, even if no one sees it." His words hung in the air like a soft breath. They were simple, but there was something deeply honest about them, something that made the hall feel warmer. The Empress looked around again. Her eyes traced the smooth surfaces, the brushed fibers, the polished walls. She placed her hand gently on a section of the wall. It lit up softly in response. "The ship feels different," she murmured. "It feels calmer." Her advisor stepped forward. "Your radiance, if I may speak." She lifted a hand lightly to pause him. Later, her attention returned to Elias. "You did not know that this ship holds symbolic marks," she said. "You did not know that for us, the natural state of the vessel is part of its soul, that you cleaned with care, not force. I can feel it." Elias frowned slightly. "Your ship has a soul?" "In a way," she replied. "It responds to emotion, memory, and atmosphere. Luffren ships are grown, not built." Elias blinked in surprise. "Grown like plants?" "Not exactly," she said with a gentle smile. "But closer to that than machines?" Elias nodded slowly, taking in the strange but beautiful idea. The Empress walked a few steps further, then turned back to him. "Why did you work with such gentle touch? Ship remembers your presence." It felt kindness. Elias rubbed the back of his neck shyly. "I guess it's just how I take care of everything. Plants respond better to soft hands. Living things get stressed if you brush them too roughly." "I didn't want to cause any discomfort." Liriana's expression changed in a small but meaningful way. Her brows softened, her posture relaxed. Something warm entered her gaze. "You speak as if everything around you has life," she said quietly. "Well, I think it does," Elias replied. "Plants, soil, even old buildings sometimes. Everything feels different if you care for it." The Empress considered his words deeply. Even her guards, standing silently near the entrance, exchanged thoughtful looks. The concept wasn't foreign to Lufren culture, but hearing it from a human with such simple innocence was unexpected. "What you did," Liriana said gently, "would normally be seen as a mistake, a misunderstanding of our traditions." Elias lowered his head. "I understand. I'm sorry, but..." Liriana added softly, "Your intentions were pure." And the ship responded positively. "I can feel it breathing more freely." Elias looked up slowly. "Really?" "Yes. she said, her voice warm. Your touch did not harm it. You may have helped it. Elias blinked in surprise. I helped. Liriana turned toward her advisors, who stood silently behind her. Let it be known, she said, that Elias Moore entered our vessel out of care, not disrespect. He meant only to protect and preserve. There will be no reprimand. A quiet sigh of relief escaped Elias before he could stop himself. The tension left his shoulders, and he felt light for the first time since stepping near the ship. But Liriana wasn't finished. She walked toward him again, her silver coat shimmering softly. I wish to understand your methods, she said. Your way of caring. Your way of observing nature. There is something peaceful in it. Leah stared in disbelief. You want to understand something from me? Yes, she said simply. Your hands carry a calm spirit. I felt it through the ship, and I believe your gentle approach may teach us something new. Elias had no idea what to say. His cheeks warmed. His heart fluttered with a mixture of surprise and embarrassment. He had never expected anyone, much less an Empress, to show interest in his quiet, simple work. Liriana glanced around once more at the shining hall, then back at him. You did not erase our history, she said softly. You shared your kindness with it. Elias felt a warm pressure in his chest, something like gratitude. Mixed with amazement, I'm glad I didn't cause trouble, he said quietly. Oh, you caused quite a surprise. Liriana replied with a small, gentle laugh. But not trouble. For the first time since the morning began, the air inside the ship felt calm again. The tension softened. The guards relaxed slightly. The advisors, though still puzzled, looked less uneasy. Elias stood in the middle of the hall, realizing slowly that his simple act, something he did, without thinking too deeply, had touched a world far different from his own. And although he did not yet understand how, this moment would become the beginning of an unexpected friendship between a human gardener with soft hands and a wolf empress who had never known such gentle care before. The atmosphere inside the Lufron vessel felt different for the rest of the morning. A soft, warm glow passed through its living walls, as if the ship itself was pleased with how things had settled. Empress Liriana walked slowly through the hall, her steps quiet and thoughtful, while Elias followed at a respectful distance. He still felt shy being inside such an important place, but the Empress's calm presence helped ease the nervous knot inside his chest. Liriana had paused near one of the curved walls and gently placed her hand on it. The wall responded with a soft shimmer, a ripple of color that moved like sunlight across water. Her eyes softened as she felt the ship's energy. It feels peaceful, she said quietly. The balance has improved. Even the vessel agrees with your choice of care. Elias watched in awe. I never knew a ship could respond like that. It looks almost alive. It is alive, Liriana replied. Not in the way a creature is, but in a way that holds memory and connection. Our technology grows with us. It feels the world. It understands its travelers. Elias let his fingers hover near the wall but didn't touch it. I didn't mean to change anything important. I thought maybe dust or pollen might harm it. Liriana turned to him with a gentle smile. Your thoughtfulness is what made the ship respond kindly. You touched the space as if it were something precious. Many people clean out of order or duty, but you cleaned with care. Elias felt his face warm slightly. No one ever described his simple actions as something special. He usually worked quietly in the background, unnoticed by most people. Hearing the Empress speak of his actions with such appreciation made him feel seen in a way he wasn't used to. Liriana continued walking through the hall, examining each small detail he had cleaned. She noticed the neatness of the brushed fibers, the smoothness of the floor, the gentle balance of the scents lingering in the air. Nothing was harsh. Nothing felt forced. Everything felt naturally improved. What made you approach the ship with such gentle touch? She asked. Elias thought for a moment, then answered honestly. I think it's because plants taught me to work slowly. When you move too fast or too strong, you can harm the leaves without meaning to. So I try to treat everything with the same softness. The Empress listened carefully. Her people had their own traditions of gentleness, but they often focused on wisdom and spiritual balance. Hearing a human speak with this kind of simple, heartfelt understanding felt refreshing to her. Your way is different from ours, she said. But it is meaningful. They continued forward until they reached the center of the ship, where the living core of the vessel pulsed with soft light. The core resembled a glowing sphere woven from strands of energy. It reacted faintly as they approached, glowing brighter when Liriana's presence came near. The Empress reached out and brushed the air near the core. It pulsed softly in response. "This core feels very calm today," she said. "It is rare for it to change so quickly." Elias watched it with fascination. The sphere reminded him of the center of a flower, bright, warm, delicate. "Did I affect that too?" he asked softly. Liriana nodded. "Yes, the vessel felt your positive intention. Lufrin ships are sensitive to emotion. Your peaceful thoughts passed through the surfaces when you cleaned them." Elias blinked in surprise. "My thoughts?" "Even gentle thoughts carry energy," she said. "Your quiet kindness shaped the environment." Elias never imagined that something as ordinary as his careful movements could make such a difference. Back in the garden, he often worked alone. He watered plants, trimmed vines, brushed away dirt, and helped young sprouts grow. It was calm, simple work. But here inside this living ship, his habits had left a powerful impression. Liriana walked around the core slowly, observing its bright pulses. Her advisors stood quietly at the edges of the room, watching, waiting, trying to understand what she saw. "This is unusual," one advisor whispered. "No outsider has ever changed the ship's atmosphere before, especially not without training," another added softly. Elias heard their whispers, and for a moment he felt small again. He wondered if he had stepped too far, done too much, or misunderstood something important. But the Empress's calm voice pulled him back into comfort. "You improved the ship," Liriana said. "Not through skill, but through the spirit of your actions." Elias smiled nervously. "I'm glad. Truly. I was afraid I messed something up." "You did not," she assured him. "You showed something new." She stepped closer to him. Her expression was gentle, thoughtful, full of quiet interest. "Tell me," she said softly, "how do humans learn this kind of care? Who taught you to work with such gentle hands?" Elias looked down for a moment, thinking back to the early years of his life. "My grandmother had a garden," he said slowly. "She always told me that everything grows better when you treat it with kindness. Not everything needs strength. Some things only need patience." Liriana listened without interrupting. "She taught me to handle every leaf like it mattered," Elias continued. "To check the soil by feeling it, not by rushing. To move slowly so the plants don't feel stressed. I guess those habits stayed with me." Liriana folded her hands gently in front of her. "Your grandmother was wise." Elias smiled softly. "She was very gentle. I think she would have loved this ship." The Empress let out a warm, thoughtful breath. She imagined an elderly human woman walking through the glowing halls of the Lufrin flag vessel with peaceful hands and curious eyes. The thought made her smile faintly. "We do not have such gardens on our ships," she said. "We keep our memories on the walls, not in soil. But your way of caring is something we could learn from." She began walking again, and Elias followed her quietly. The hall felt wider now, filled with a sense of calm curiosity. Even the ship's lights shifted softly, as if listening to their conversation. "May I ask something?" Elias said, gathering a bit of courage. "Of course," Liriana replied. "Are you upset that I changed something?" "Even a little?" Liriana stopped, turning fully toward him. Her silver eyes held honesty, not hidden feelings. "I was surprised," she said, "because our traditions are very old, and the marks on the ship are sacred to us." Elias lowered his head slightly. "But," she continued, "your kindness was stronger than the surprise. You did not erase our history. You touched it gently. That makes the change acceptable." Elias felt warmth in his chest. "Thank you, Your Radiance." "I would like to learn from you," Liriana said. "Your methods. Your calm way of observing nature. I want to understand the human habit of maintaining places with care." Elias blinked. "You want to learn from me?" "Yes," she said with a soft smile. "Your gentle spirit is rare. It carries harmony. I wish to understand it." Elias felt more emotions than he could put into words. For the first time in his life, his quiet nature, something he once thought made him ordinary, felt important. "I'll teach you anything I know." he said softly. It won't be complicated. The Empress nodded. Simple things often hold the deepest meaning. The ship hummed softly around them. As if echoing her words, they continued walking through the bright corridors. And slowly the tension between their two worlds softened. The Empress asked questions about earth gardens, soil care, watering rhythms, and plant behavior. Elias answered with shy enthusiasm, explaining the little habits he had learned over the years. He told her how plants lean toward sunlight, how the smallest sprouts push through soil with quiet strength, how soft brushing helps leaves grow straighter, how fallen petals can help enrich the ground. Liriana listened to every word, fascinated. The Lufran people respected nature deeply, but they had always approached it with wisdom and tradition. Hearing it from the perspective of simple human care felt new and refreshing. By the time they reached the end of the hall, an unexpected friendship had begun to form, soft, simple, and sincere. Elias felt comfortable walking beside her now. Liriana felt a calm she hadn't expected to find on another world. Neither of them knew it yet. But this quiet connection was about to shape the future of their two cultures. For now, though, they walked slowly through the glowing halls of the ship, a gardener and an empress, learning from one another with every gentle word. When the sun rose over greenstone habitat, the soft morning light touched every leaf and every path inside the vast garden complex. Birds sang from the tall trees, and the soft wind carried the smell of flowers across the grounds. The place felt calm, peaceful, and bright. Yet inside the large science hall, everyone waited nervously for the Empress of the Lufran Empire to speak. No one knew what she would decide. Her ship had been cleaned without her permission, which was considered a very personal matter for her people. But something had changed during the past day, something no one had expected. And now everyone held their breath as she stepped forward. Liriana Vex. The Wolf Empress walked slowly toward the center of the hall. Her tall, graceful form glowed faintly under the lights, and her silver fur shimmered like moonlit water. Her eyes were calm, not bright with anger as they had been before. She looked around the room, taking in every face. Her guards stood behind her, but even they looked unsure of what was about to happen. A large screen displayed a simple message: decision regarding the human gardener. Everyone glanced at Elias. He stood quietly near the edge of the room, hands folded in front of him. He still wore his simple gardener uniform, the same one he had worn the day he cleaned the ship. He looked small in the huge hall, especially compared to the tall Lufran guards. But something in his posture had changed. He no longer looked afraid. Instead, he looked calm, as if he understood something important. Liriana raised her hand gently. The room fell silent. She began speaking in a steady voice. She did not sound angry. She did not sound strict. Instead, she sounded thoughtful, almost warm. She explained that her ship was more than just a vessel. It was connected to her life, her memories, her spirit. That was why she had been upset at first. She shared that in Lufran culture, every mark on the ship had meaning. Every pattern told a story. Cleaning it without permission was seen as erasing part of that story. People nodded, understanding her better now. Even the human scientists who had been confused before now realized the deeper reason behind her reaction. Then Liriana spoke about something else. She talked about the moment she re-entered her ship after Elias had cleaned it. She described how the ship had responded gently, almost happily, to the change. How the living systems inside the vessel worked more smoothly. How the air felt lighter and the energy felt clearer. Her voice softened as she described this, as if she was remembering something comforting. She said she had never seen her ship respond in such a positive way before. Not once, not even during official maintenance by her own trained engineers. It was surprising to her, even a little confusing. So she had spent the previous night thinking about it. Why would a simple cleaning done by a human gardener make such a difference? Her answer came slowly, but it came clearly. She had realized that Elias had cleaned the ship, not because he wanted recognition, not because he felt superior. He had done it because he cared about the garden, cared about the environment, and cared about keeping things healthy and safe. He didn't see the ship as a sacred object, but he did see it as something worth protecting. He didn't know the meaning of the marks inside the ship, but he respected the ship enough not to damage anything. Liriana said that this simple act, cleaning with care, without expecting anything in return, was a kind of kindness she had never seen before. It was not a grand gesture. It was not a heroic action. It was something small, but meaningful. And sometimes, she said, the smallest things can change the biggest hearts. Then, she looked directly at Elias. The whole room fell silent once again. Liriana announced that Elias was completely free of blame. She said his actions were not a mistake, but a gift. She declared that the Lufran Empire would not punish him. Instead, they wanted to honor him, because he had shown the Empress something important, something her own people had forgotten over the years. He had reminded them that caring for something can be a gentle act, not a strict duty. That small acts of attention can heal things in unexpected ways. A soft wave of relief spread through the room. Elias could feel it too. His shoulders relaxed, and he let out a slow breath as Liriana continued speaking. She announced a new tradition that would begin in the Lufran Empire. Inspired by Elias's actions, they would create a new role: caretakers of the vessel soul. People trained not only to maintain a ship, but to understand its heart, its story, and its connection to the one who travels in it. These caretakers would learn to treat a ship with care and respect, not fear or strictness. And to her own court's surprise, Liriana invited Elias to become the first teacher of this new role. Elias blinked in shock. He had never expected anything like that. He was just a gardener. He cared for plants, soil, and small growing things. He didn't see himself as someone special, but Liriana saw something special in him. Something simple, yet powerful. She stepped closer to him, lowering her tall frame so she could look at him more closely. She thanked him in a soft voice, telling him that he had taught her something about kindness, simplicity, and care. Something she wanted to bring back to her people. Elias felt his heart warm. He shook his head gently and told her he hadn't done anything extraordinary. He just saw dust and pollen drifting inside the ship and wanted to protect the Lufran visitors. He explained that in a garden, keeping things clean wasn't about control. It was about giving plants space to grow. He wanted to do the same for her ship. Liriana smiled, a real smile, gentle and shining. The room grew brighter after that moment. People relaxed. The tension that had filled the hall dissolved into warmth and quiet happiness. For the first time since Liriana's arrival, humans and Lufran alike stood comfortably side by side. A small ceremony began. Liriana placed a silver band around Elias's wrist, a symbol of respect in her culture. The band glowed faintly, as if it recognized him. People clapped softly. Even some of the tall Lufran guards nodded in approval. As the ceremony ended, Liriana offered Elias a place on her ship, inviting him to travel with her and share his gentle way of caring for things. She said he didn't have to accept. It was an open invitation, something he could consider over time. Elias looked at the gardens outside the window. He loved greenstone habitat with all his heart. He had spent years planting flowers, trimming vines, and shaping the paths. Leaving the place felt impossible. But the idea of traveling among the stars, helping a culture learn about simple human kindness, felt like something worth thinking about. He told the Empress he needed time to decide. She nodded respectfully, saying he could take all the time he wanted. The invitation would never expire. When the ceremony ended, reporters and scientists began talking excitedly. Some celebrated the new connection between Earth and the Lufran Empire. Others whispered that history had been made that day. A gardener had changed the path of two worlds, not with power or technology, but with a simple act of care. Liriana stepped outside into the garden, letting the sunlight warm her silver fur. She breathed in the fresh earth air with calm appreciation. Elias stood beside her and they looked at the gardens together. The flowers swayed gently as if welcoming this new beginning. Later that night, the Interstellar Archives would record the event under a simple title, written by Liriana herself. The day the Empress asked who cleaned her ship in humanity, answered Elias, would read those words years later and smile softly. remembering that everything had started with dust, pollen, and a simple wish to keep things alive and healthy. And from that small beginning, an entire friendship between worlds had grown,